Ginger, welcome to Pop Culture Moms.
I am so happy to be here.
We are thrilled to have you here. I'm your biggest fan. Sabrina's your second biggest fan. So you are the chief meteorologist at ABC News, the first woman to hold that at a major network. What first drew you to weather meteorology?
I have loved the atmosphere since I was 8. I spent a summer on Lake Michigan and was really fortunate to have the ability to look out over this huge lake. And if you haven't been, it looks like the ocean.
It does.
You don't see the end of it. It's not like a lake. It's a bad word for it. It should be. It's a bad term. And I remember having a very stormy summer, my brother and I spending that summer there, and me regularly seeing thunderstorms come across. Sometimes they would hit us. Sometimes they'd go to our north. And I started to put together, this is a puzzle. Like, why does that happen? And I was a really curious kid. And then one day we saw a water spout. And it was locked. I was like, what? I love that thing. It's so powerful. Like, I needed to know more. So I remember clearly running in 3rd grade to the encyclopedia, grabbing the weather section, the tornado section, and like hoarding over it. You know, because kids get passionate about, my kids right now are into Pokemon, so maybe they become, anyway, you know what I'm saying?
That's right, that's right.
We watch kids go through these.
Yeah.
Well, that thing, my thing, never left. And I always found, and still do, when I walk outside, I look up and I look at it like a puzzle that I want to put together. And most days I can. Some days you can't. And there's still, and that is what draws me to keep wanting to do it. So that's where it started.
And also, let's not forget Helen Hunt from Twister.
Time for deployment, guys. Let's do it.
And that's why I say where it started.
Okay.
You tell it.
If she didn't ignite some passions.
I'd be walking around still just looking at the sky if it weren't for Helen Hunt. Because I didn't want to be one of those people who told the weather on TV. That's weird. I really didn't. I was super shy. I had no intention. And I didn't know what I would want to do with meteorology because it's not like we see the image of ourselves in a meteorologist that works at the National Weather Service. That was not clear to me at the time. And so when I was starting to think about what I'd want to do, I saw the movie Twister, and I saw Helen Hunt's character standing on the top, directing people in a storm chase. I was like, that's what I want to do. They say representation matters. Like, also, thanks, Hollywood, because there were no women doing that, of course.
Right.
But thank you. So I knew that that happened. Within a year, we had something called a derecho in West Michigan, where these extremely strong winds took out the very movie theater that I had seen Twister in. People were killed, people were injured, and I was like, holy cow, this is a job. I want to go figure out these storms and storm chase and help people, put Toto and Dorothy and everything, and just like they did. So the movie definitely told me I want to be a storm chaser. And when I went to choose a college for meteorology, I knew I wanted to choose one where we could storm chase. And I went to Valparaiso, studied meteorology, and I got credit for chasing tornadoes. So we would go for a 10-day chase and come back.
Incredible.
Yeah. There's no better way to learn, truly.
That's like amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I mean, I'm scared of a rainstorm. Like, so Sabrina and I just thinking about ourselves running towards a storm.
Yeah.
It's
tough
really
on
great.
me.
But you're
It's
going
amazing.
toward it with education
Yes,
and
right.
with with caution and you're always, I'm extremely conservative chaser, I would say. And that's the beauty, is you can learn how, and majority, 95% of tornadoes turn right, as we call it. So you can plant yourself south of a cell and watch this thing go like this in the ideal conditions. Granted, there are anomalies and things, but that's part of the beauty, is that tornado chasing is where it started for me. And then, to be here, I would have never told you that I would end up talking about it or expressing it. But that is what I fell in love with just as much when I did an internship in broadcast meteorology. And with this guy named James Spann. He's like a king in our industry. And it was supposed to happen, you know? And then I came away from that internship like, ooh, I'd be like Helen Hunt and James Spann had a baby.
Yeah.
And that is who I became.
That's
love
awesome.
Yeah.
No, what are your favorite, natural disaster movies?
It's hard because it's much like someone in the medical profession when they're going to watch.
Realistic.
No.
Is that right?
I mean, Twister
not?
is so scientifically gash. Like, it is so bad.
Are you serious?
Laughably
I
bad.
thought that was
Sabrina, we were like, it's a documentary.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
no.
So much so that I had my agent reach out multiple times to the producers and say, hey, Ginger feels really confident that she could be a consultant if you'd like. Because
They're making a new one.
and you know me, because I do this to all of our producers, it doesn't have to be wrong to make it big. It doesn't have to be wrong. It's tornadoes are
Right.
exciting. You don't have to make them
Yes.
inaccurate.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So much like medicine, though. So I think that as we've seen from the show
Yes.
ER
Yeah,
all the
yeah,
way
yeah.
up. I think things have gotten better. I think they've gotten smarter about, I watched Doogie Howser with my kids, and it was like, oh, God, I don't even know medicine, and I know this is bad.
I can tell you right now, these facts are
Well, there are
inaccurate.
some things that I watch where I'm like, that's not correct.
Yeah, and so I have a hard time once
get
I
that.
get past that and tell myself to be entertained for once, and this isn't a documentary, Ginger. I still Twister's number one. I can't tell you that there's another, and I'm really tenderly and sensitively awaiting the new one.
Okay,
We'll see.
Can I ask you about one film that really wrecked me for a while? The Impossible with Naomi Watts.
I haven't seen it, so I should
Okay,
say.
okay,
Yeah.
all right.
But
Yeah.
I
You'll
am
watch it,
familiar,
okay.
yeah.
About the
It's
tsunami.
really scary.
Yeah.
Yes, it's
Tsunami, that
it's
now.
gripping because it's like it's almost like POV.
Oh,
shot.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So you feel
It's
like
the
you're-
Blair
yeah.
Witch of tsunamis.
It's like
Yes, it
yeah,
really
yeah.
is. It's
There's
really
something really
scary.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, see, tsunamis, though, because they are geologic, because they come from under, that was less of my study, even though it seems like an Earth system,
yeah.
And I definitely know a lot about them. So I think I'd probably have less magnetism to the...
Less
yeah.
interest in
Yeah,
that one.
like I miss that.
Yeah. Weather is such a perfect metaphor for like life
It
and
sure
how we
is.
experience everything, and you really talk about that in your books. So, how has your parenting been influenced by your understanding of weather?
So many ways. I can't even, and I try not to be annoyingly cliche, but it just comes out, like with my kids, because at a certain point they're going to realize that I am full cheese fest. And like everything I'm saying, for right now, because they're 6 and 8, it feels good. And I'm sitting in that sweet spot of like that young elementary where their teachers are probably doing this, they're probably making great analogies, and I'm in a safe place. Wait until 4th-ish, and then I think I'm starting to get the cock of the head, like, hold on a second. What'd you say? You are so, like, Mom. They're already embarrassed at certain things. But I will say that I use it a lot as analogies. I talk a lot about, especially my older one, he's much like me, and my husband to some degree, but mostly like me. He's a born perfectionist. He's a people pleaser. He came out wanting to do that. And I know that that's not everyone, because I see my second child, and he is not.
Yeah.
He's actually a born not people pleaser.
Yeah.
How do I wake up every day not pleasing people? And so to watch him go through life, I have to regularly tell him, like, there's, we have fully sunny days, and if he's relating that to perfection, like, of course, nobody's fully perfect. There's always a cloud somewhere. There's always something somewhere. And then we're going to have stormy and rough days, and like, but these things are temporary. And so I use it for that part of life, just the very basic emotional regulation of how do we respond to the ever-changing ups and downs of life. In like more meteorological terms, and I've done this with him, it's like troughs and ridges. Like, we have the downs to have the ups. You cannot have it flat, or else the world wouldn't go around. Like our Earth is, he's very smart for 8, I think. I hope this is, reverberating in his head. But we have to have hot and cold to make everything move. We have to have that up and down. And so I use that a lot, but I also then use it for myself.
Yes.
Because we need to all be reminded of that. So my saying that I always say is, when we're in that storm, it doesn't last forever. Like, it can't and it won't. It's not how the atmosphere works, and it's not how life works.
That is something that I think I just turned 39, and I'm just getting clear on that. Like, because I've struggled with my mental health, just really the impermanence of life.
Yes.
Just like people in your life not staying forever, or death, or whatever. It's trying to get away from the attachment of thinking whatever circumstance you're in now is going to last. And I think that helps me through times of depression, when you get that period of like, I think this is who I really am. Like, this depressed version of me is like going to maintain
Like, that's the only
forever.
thing that's
Right.
there. Yeah.
But I think that the more I can kind of cling to, it wasn't always like this. It wasn't always a cloudy day. We had sunny days. The weather changed. It warmed up. Things like that. The metaphor, it's like too perfect. Serena's like, you don't start writing poetry about it, but I would like to. But I think your journey with weather and your openness about mental health struggles has been so inspiring.
Thank you.
Because you started sharing things like, now it's common to see people talking about anxiety or depression or even PTSD, like on TikTok, on X, on Instagram. But I think like when you wrote your first memoir and really opened up about it, it did something to kind of shift the stigma that is still there, although lessening.
Yeah. I think so. I love hearing people share it. I think it's interesting to watch how it's evolved because even my sharing has evolved because I saw, oh, it's okay to share that part. Well, what if I share this part? And as you share, you heal. And so it's been a healing process for me to do this as well, both in writing and in just having conversations. I think that we've come a long way in the anxiety, depression, therapy. People feel comfortable. I think the next level is how do we get the stigma away from when I tell you I went to the psych ward at Columbia?
Right.
Because that's usually when an eyebrow comes up or so, right? Like, I'm sorry, what? You know? And that is the very time that I finally got the help I needed, got the diagnosis I needed, and then got the right type of therapy that has me sitting in this chair, healthy, happy, alive, and sharing with all of you. And so that's what I hope that we can get to. Also, that different diagnoses. Like my diagnosis, even though depression was a part of it, was really borderline personality disorder. And that sounds crazy, right? Like that's the word, and we're trying to stay away from that word because we don't know anything about it. But it's an underdiagnosed, and the beauty of it, and what I learned is there's beauty in almost all of them, in that, especially in borderline, you can grow through it and out of it. And so I have now recovered. I would be
I learned
considered.
that in your book. I was fascinated.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
But like being afraid of saying the true diagnoses, that only allows for people to be mystified and then have this shroud of like, ooh, I don't know. There's a lot of shame when nobody knows. And then when you say what it is, you're like, oh, I probably have that.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We all probably do a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or
we
know
took,
somebody who does. Yeah.
we took
That's right.
psychology in college, and
Oh,
I
yeah.
would like try and think of like family members
Yes.
that
Do a
checklist.
that would help me remember.
Yes.
I would be like, oh yeah,
it's that person.
yeah.
Because everybody does. And having that, too, of understanding, it's like saying that somebody's insulated from the weather. That's not true.
Right.
We all are. And then we have our internal storms, and then we have the external ones. And the interaction between those two is pretty important. And that's something we talk a lot. As a parent, I don't know about you guys, but for him, it's all about that perfection, that good and bad. And I realize that we do that to ourselves through the rest of life, that I'm not good enough, or I'm not, like, first of all, nobody's all the way good and nobody's all the way bad. I think everybody lives somewhere in between. We talk about that all the time. And we make choices every day. And those choices can lead us on one side or the other, but we're going to try to keep making choices to be on the better, right? Like to be a good citizen and be a part of the world and all of those things. And that, I don't know if that has sunk in for him, but me repeating it, and I tell my mom that now because I have to remind her, right?
Oh,
like you're
yeah. You
parenting your parent, and you're
Yes.
like, oh, so you didn't teach me how to emotionally regulate, but I am going to help you, lady.
Yes.
Yeah.
I gentle parent my parents all the time.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
always like
Yeah.
trying to be like, you're feeling angry.
Yes.
Right.
It's okay to feel angry.
Use your words.
Yes.
That's something that we talk about all the time. Like that when you have kids, like you really, it sounds a little woo-woo, but I think there is a great reparenting that goes on, that you're in a sense like triggered and working through therapeutically like your own problems or your own like maladaptive behaviors,
And
whatever it is.
I'm sure they did to a certain degree too, but every generation gets a chance to do it more. And I think we're in a really great place where we're getting to be the open one who's sharing on both sides.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of responsibility, but it's pretty cool. And I look at and we give them so much more grace. I don't know if you all do,
Yeah.
but I held some pretty rough things for a long time. And then writing my book helped. And then even speaking to my dad was with us over the holidays. And I finally had this revelation, probably as I was like cleaning up somebody's puke and then also puking because I was, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I had this revelation that we only went to his house because they were divorced when it was winter. Oh my God, I can only have memories of being sick at my dad's house. Meaning that, like, I'm sure I had a cold here and there, but a majority of the year at my mom's, we were healthy. And he took us for those awful months every year.
Right.
And I never gave him credit for that. That sucks.
That does feel
That's
because as
really, it's the worst.
Sabrina has a 2 and a 4-year-old. I have a 3 and a 5-year-old, and we just like look like October through like what May. I'm gonna
mean,
say
it
April.
extends.
April.
It's
disgusting.
a lot. It's a lot of.
It was
it's
just last week for
back
me.
to back to back.
It's
yeah.
really gross.
So
Yeah.
it's yeah. So anyway.
So good for them. They did that too.
Let's give your dad a presidential medal.
That's
right.
I mean, honestly, yeah. Okay.
What like was your mom like when you
Oh
were
my
little?
goodness. Well, I had to write books about it, so it's pretty long. No, she, overall, I give her so much of she taught me how to be full of hope and how to treat people right. The golden rule was above our door, and we always talked about how you want to be treated is how you treat others. And I have never stopped living by that because she repeated it every day before we went to school. It was just a fundamental part. I think I should do it more with my kids because I'm not doing that enough. Like it's so
Yeah.
important. Repetition is important. And she also is the person who, you want something done. That's my mom. She was hope-filled. She was not going to take no for an answer, and she would make everything happen. Currently, my 70-year-old mother is on track to this April graduate from medical school.
Hold on. I'm sorry. Wait. No.
If this doesn't tell you who this lady is. And when people are
From
like,
medical school.
Yes, she retired to go back to med school. So when
This is the most ambitious family. I'm out. Ginger, I
She-
can't relate to this.
at 27 years old, had 2 masters in nursing and got pregnant with me. And she had intended to go to medical school because it just life hadn't worked to that. And actually, when she went to college, they were telling women still, you shouldn't be a doctor, right? Like, so she was coming from that. And then over those couple of years, society was like, maybe you could. And then she's like, okay, I want to be a doctor. And then she got pregnant with me. And so it kind of stopped up the plans. She had 3 more children, which kind of slowed down the whole, I'm going to go to med school someday. And she had to work. She was a neonatal nurse practitioner. So she worked really long hours and all this stuff. So most people retire, and then they want to chill out. My mom retired and directly went to med school. Where, I mean, she had 2 roommates who were in their mid-20s. They both failed.
Wait, she had
had
went
roommates.
She did the full experience.
Everything.
This woman's insane. We should have her here today.
Yes.
Ginger's mom, come
she
on
is,
out. Like,
she is the
honestly,
pop culture mom. Because actually, if she goes through the residency, which God willing, she will be the oldest. She'll be a GMA story.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, she'll be a Guinness book.
So
This
inspired
needs to
and
be a
impressed.
storyline on Grey's Anatomy.
no
for
question,
sure.
no question.
It's incredible.
So that's what she was like, if that gives you.
Yeah. So when you are parenting your kids, what are you going to take from your mom? And is there anything you want to leave behind and just be like, that didn't really work for me?
A lot.
Yes.
Yeah. I will take the you can get anything you want as long as you treat people well along the way. And I think that combination idea will be there. Same thing. I will plow through, and my team here calls me like a nibbler. Like, I'm not one to bite, but I will nibble until you get what I want. Right?
I'm gonna take that. I like
So
that.
I don't think she was a biter, like my mom. So I modified that already. I'd like to teach my kids how to do that and protect themselves even more, because I don't know that either of us did that very well, my mom and my husband's expert level at the protecting yourself. So I think combined we'll do a decent job. I'm going to leave behind, oh my goodness, so many things. The volatility and the not knowing what's next. My mom had a lot of her own mental health issues that nobody knew how to fix, and she did eventually. Medication helped, and therapy has helped, and I think it was just there were a lot of environmental factors, but there was no one to help her. She didn't have the support, and so if I get to those places, I'm going to never let myself be alone in that, and I think she did.
Yeah.
Not her fault necessarily, but I'm going to change that if that happens.
Yeah.
Because it can happen to anyone at any time in their life, and she was trying to do it all by herself, and that is why it got ugly for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like when I read in your book, just the openness that you were able to have with her, like telling her, I mean, she's the one, so it was 10 days before you started working at Good Morning America or at ABC in general, and you told her, like, I'm really not doing well, and she's like, we have to do something. You
gotta go to the hospital.
Yeah. Checked into Columbia.
Yeah, into the psych ward, because it was. She had told me that for 10 years. I mean, I had 2 suicide attempts, like serious. This not that they're not serious, but hospitalized.
Yeah.
And I never paid it the attention it deserved. I never went and got the help, nor was I probably ready. I was finally ready. I also didn't want to come here and screw this up. It was like I'd worked so hard for this one thing, and I was so lucky that my career kept going up that whole time, that my mental health was all over the place. And so she wanted that for me, but she wanted our daughter alive. I was in a horribly abusive relationship. She was afraid that he would hurt me or I would hurt myself. And she, as a mom now, talk about like the grace I give her. I cannot believe what I put her through. Truly.
And not intentionally, like,
Oh my gosh.
only in hindsight, but yes.
And then I started, that's the only bad thing about writing and remembering a lot of this. I was telling my team actually recently about a moment I remember that my mom and my stepdad got a call because my purse had been found in an alley in Chicago. And they're thinking the absolute worst, right? Like turns out, drunk Ginger kind of like Weird Barbie, like regular. Like this was, yep. Had, for some reason, flung my full purse of money, and because why wouldn't I? And then just disappeared for 6 hours with friends or wherever, and like nobody could find me, and it was 4 a.m. and then the police came. Those types of stories I think about if my kids do that.
Yeah.
And like they will.
And they will.
Unfortunately, they will.
God, Sabrina, don't bring that in.
No.
They will. Okay, they will.
Yeah.
They will.
No.
They all will.
Yeah.
Yeah. And luckily, you're like better equipped now, hopefully.
Yeah,
I think we should move to Antarctica.
But the gift is the openness, the open line of communication that you could tell her that. Because
and
I think, a lot
I
of
would
people
tell them
wouldn't.
the story first to say, don't do this.
Yeah,
Do you know how lucky
right,
mommy
right,
was that I, you know,
Yeah.
wasn't abducted?
It's so wild.
It is lucky. Now, switching gears.
Yeah.
I recently had like a problem where my daughter became obsessed with hurricanes.
Yes.
And I couldn't figure out how to explain it to her. So as I was saying earlier, I just was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to
Reach
text
out.
Ginger.
Sure.
Take it to the experts.
Yeah, take it to the experts. And you helped explain it.
Yeah.
And it was great. And she does believe you control the weather. Like,
Wonderful.
Like you're Elsa now.
That's next step.
yeah.
It's a lot of responsibility.
This is my
Like,
vision board.
bigger picture, how can parents explain climate change to children?
Yes.
Can you like help us with that question?
How much time do we have?
Yeah.
We need about 4
No,
hours.
I can make it super
okay,
easy.
Thank you.
The first thing is saying we know a lot, we don't know everything. Lay that out there, because that's what science is. That's what all science is. So if we can make them kind of baseline understand that. But here's what we do know. We know, and figured out a long time ago, almost 200 years now, a woman figured out that when we burn things like oil or gas, fossil fuels, that gas goes into the atmosphere and it acts like a blanket. That way, the heat that's coming into our atmosphere from the sun has a blanket on now. So we added a blanket. We always had different layers and we always had different things, but all we did was put one more on like we do in the winter on our bed. We didn't need to do that. And we are warming faster than we naturally would have, because we have always warmed and cooled. That's what the Earth does over cycles and cycles and eons. But we have added a blanket in the last 150 years, and we haven't stopped making that blanket thicker. That's it.
Okay, I love that because it takes into account, yes, climate changing is natural. It is going to change.
Always.
But we have some responsibility here.
Yeah.
And it allows, like giving them a level of agency, like there are actions we can take, you know, because not feeling helpless, like it's too late. It's too late to fix or like, you know, to change what we've done so far. I think that's like a very helpful way.
Yeah.
Because it can be scary to tell them, like I will tell my son, like when we have like a national holiday, if I tell him some of the history, he's 5 and he's like thinks he's got it all now. So he'll be like, okay, so did anything else happen a long time ago that I don't know about?
Yeah.
And I'm like, briefly there's a couple things, but he just, so I want to tell him things, but I don't want to overwhelm him. So I think that's like that's a very helpful way.
The blanket is an age appropriate, and it's actually good for adults too, because I think it gets so misconstrued and politicized like everything does, but truly it is such a simple physics.
Yeah,
it is physics. We put gases up, those gases trap heat, that's it.
Okay.
Got some uncles I'll share that with.
That's
too.
it, right? Yeah, no, I do too.
Yeah. I'm going to talk to the adults in my life first.
You also, like, for climate change, you're doing like a buy nothing. I've been noticing that.
Yeah.
I love this. Anti-influencer.
But
Yes, I
what does it happen? What happens with your children? Like,
Yeah.
are they desperate?
I
Like, we
know.
go to Target and I can't get out of there without a toy some days. So how are you doing this?
So we talk about this a lot because we can make the analogy to food. When we all have our first child, we're pureeing broccoli and we are doing the absolute most we can. And then we start to realize that might not be fully life, and we don't want them to be the total weirdo that's never had an M&M, right? Like that they can't be. So I think I approach it in a similar way, that there is with them moderation, but also education, and there's understanding. So what we were missing, and what I think consumers in general are missing, because we may not live in a democracy, but we live in a consumerism, you know, that we just haven't had the pause. We haven't had the meditative moment. And I don't mean you got to go sit for 10 minutes and think about what you're going to buy, but just the pause. Want, need. It's okay to have some moderation fun here and there. I'm not a total monster. I'm not going to say never. For the first 6 years of birthdays, we said no gifts, and we said you can donate if you want, because we just felt like they were overdone. And then they started paying attention to other birthday parties, and they were like, wow, what's his name? Got a lot of presents.
Yeah.
That seemed nice. And I was like, oh, that's so sad. And so actually I spoke, my husband's more worried about the spoiled part of it. He's not thinking about the environment like I am. And so we talked to them and we said, okay, we're going to ask people to, maybe it's like whatever. And so they did get like a gift card. And this is kind of my nightmare because it's going to be a toy. And we don't want them to not have toys. So I think that for their birthdays, for special events, but on those regular things, we talk a lot about what do we have already? Can we find something secondhand? If you're really into action figures, which we did this year, he very much for his birthday wanted G.I. Joes. And I was like, cool. It's like plastic wrapped in plastic, made in somewhere far from here. And I had all these like icky feelings. And then I was like, oh my God, everybody has G.I. Joes. And I found unbelievable deals, first of all, on Poshmark and on all these things. And then it gets shipped to you and you have G.I. Joes. And we had 10 for the price of one, So it was like there are options to use the circular economy. And that's really what it is. I'm not saying don't ever buy anything.
Right, yeah.
There are many things we do need. But maybe taking that pause, think about who's made it. How did it get here? What materials came? And those are the steps that I want them to go through as they become adults. We don't go through every step because we don't need to talk about every poly everything. But we do talk about the packaging. I'm like, think about these G.I. Joes. They didn't come in a package. It's just the box. And he was like, that's cool, Now, my husband's worried. It's a good story. So he comes off the bus, our little one, and he's like, whoever on the bus, he said that we're going to play Fortnite tomorrow with our Fortnite guys. And then I was like, and he goes, but I don't have a Fortnite guy. Can we go to Target? He said they're at Target. And I was like, I said, we have a lot of action figures you could probably bring on. Yeah. And Ben's like, he's going to be the weird kid. What are you doing? Like, don't let him be the weird kid. And I'm like, I know, honey. And so then I got, because he's young enough, he's in kindergarten. And I'm like, what if we made one of your other guys into the Fortnite guy?
Weird Barbie.
Yes. So we made like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle that looked kind of body-wise like what it was. And then I made a hat. A hat.
Sewing doll.
I did. I sewed doll clothes. And he was very proud of because then he made it. And he had a little bit more like, and I will tell you, do you know which action figure is standing proudly on his thing right now, on his desk? That one.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay,
so you can get away with it for a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
But hearing about your mother and then your industriousness, it's
you're
like,
very
sure that you guys
get
are
things done.
You're a different breed of people where you're very ambitious.
Yeah.
I can't relate.
I have to just read this real quick to you. Sorry, this relates very much. So tell me you're my son without telling me you're my son. Adrian writes things for school all the time. Dear readers, Pompeii, Buried Alive is the best book ever. I think you should read it if you're a person who likes sad books. You're gonna be mind blown. I mean, you talk about a kid
if you're into
he's learning stuff.
In touch with, but he chose that. I didn't tell him choose Pompeii, but like I love a good disaster book.
Yeah.
He's me. Like I'm not making him the weird kid. He is the weird kid.
I love that.
You are gonna be mind blown if you like sad books.
You are gonna be mind blown.
Certainly
let's get him on here as our book recommendation
you
guy.
should right. Make him our book club.
Yeah, no question.
Perfect.
When we have one.
Okay. Speaking of motherhood and taking care of children, it is so all-consuming. It's so exhausting. I think, like Sabrina and I joke that you better have all your self-help done before you have kids because you're stopping. You're stopping for a couple of years.
Yeah, for at least a couple of years.
Because it's so hard to find. It's not just the self-care of take a bath. It's really how do you recharge and things like that. So I'm interested in how you wrote most of the things that you've written about struggling with mental health and depression, things like that, before kids. How have your children changed the way that you've learned to take care of your mental well-being?
Yeah, it's a prioritization, right? You have to do that or else you're going to be a bad mom. And I think that I knew that in writing because my mom didn't do that. And she didn't know how, and there wasn't all the resources that we have now. So what a tragedy if I did the same thing and repeated that. And so for their sake, and I did write, I'm trying to think of the timeline, but I think I had Miles after the first one. I think I was pregnant with him when it came out or something. But yes, that majority of it came out. And I had written it just maybe with Adrian at that because I wrote it while I was on the plane between dancing. And he was so young, and I definitely was not being the perfect mom and I learned that really fast because I was trying to do 2 full-time jobs and fly across the country every week and do a show with your body that you'd never done before. And then what I realized, I think, is just how much I'm so lucky to have a partner. I'm privileged to be able to have the financial ability to have help because the way our families are set up, majority of us don't have that. We don't have anybody nearby that can just pop over if the kid gets sick or the nanny gets sick. And that happens a lot, And so my husband's often the one, because he leaves after me. He still leaves early, but he leaves after me, and he'll be like, oh, he woke up, coughing up a lung. And he's like, now I can't go in. And he takes that, and he is that guy and I'm so lucky to have a great partner. So I think that part, I've gotten through realizing I can't do it alone. And I learned that far before. And that writing helped me do that. And then realizing not only can I not do it alone, but I need to, it's not about getting over like the mom guilt and that stuff. Like we talk about that stuff too much almost because it's like, obviously, that's just part of life.
Yeah.
I don't even know. We can't say don't have it. You're going to have it.
Yes.
Right.
What do you do with that and how do you manage it? And all I've done is focus. So it's about putting the phone away when I get home. Not expert at this, and I'm not perfect at it, but when they have your full attention, you see how they act differently when you're on your device or when you're distracted with and do you remember your parents, like my mom would be on the phone with somebody and I would very much want her attention. It's the same thing, just this instead of that. Using that quality time. I'm leaving tomorrow for 4 days, and that's a pretty long time for a mom to be gone. And how do I communicate to them that they're still my priority? How do I make sure that they know and maybe leave a note under one of their pillows or, surprise them in some way so that there's still a touch? I talked to my therapist about this a lot because especially the distance thing with my travel. And he said, think about relationships with a friend or a close family member. You don't see them sometimes but once a year, but you still can have a very tight relationship. It doesn't, geography and time doesn't make things. It's about communication and connection. How do you sustain connection even when you're not physically there? And those are the tips that I've been like looking for and finding and different things that I can tell them. And then connecting it, and my husband's very good about supporting this too, about knowing that what I'm doing is important. I'm not just taking off and like,
right, yes.
And so recently they made me a video, and I was out in California for one of the big atmospheric rivers, and Miles is like, at the end of the video, he's like, thanks, Mom. And he's like, what do you mean thanks? He's like, thanks for making sure people don't die. And I was like, well, he got it.
Yeah,
he's not wrong.
It's an important service.
So I don't know if that answered the question,
Yes.
but that's how I mom now in knowing. And the choices that I've made are different than the ones that my mom did, and there will be problems, and they are going to go to therapy, and that'll be great.
No, let's just assume they will, though.
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
will.
Like,
And actually, that should be the goal.
Right.
That they go.
I know.
Or that they feel so okay with talking about how they feel, or that it's bad now, but it won't, like we've talked about before. I think that's a huge stigma that I think is lessening, and I think hopefully our kids will just treat their mental health proactively. Like you talk about how treat your mental well-being like your physical well-being. Like just schedule, like that exercise is going to make you feel good. Like check in with yourself, recharge.
You hear that all the time. Put your workout in your calendar. Put your mental health in your calendar. And so block out that time. And that's something I've made every morning. I have a meditation, 10 minutes that can't be missed, right? Like those are like the sit-ups for your brain.
Ginger, what time are you getting up on?
But everybody's meditating now. It's super easy. It's just 10 minutes. You can put it in, I promise.
Okay. You're like waking up at like 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, no, not
And are
two.
you still doing squats while you brush your teeth?
Yes, you have to get those minis in.
Yeah.
I was mini
remember that.
workouting before it was cool.
That's really
But see, the physical falls in line after you get your mental. And like with my therapist is my trainer of my brain. I will cancel my actual trainer far before I'm going to cancel or not reschedule my trainer of my brain, my therapist. So those prioritizations is what it is. It's focusing on the thing. And once that, I always think of it as a pyramid. Once your mental health is cared for, the rest of it just truly falls in.
That's so true. That is true, though.
And we don't do that. I put my money, my time, and my priority on that. instead of whatever else it is, because the rest comes
Yeah.
through.
I think everyone does, and then especially women, and then especially mothers. Like, you just put yourself last.
Yeah.
Put yourself last, and you're also just, it's not even, like you said, like a bath might not be, if a bath isn't the thing, like just because that's the thing that people do, like maybe that's not what you needed, you know, like maybe it is that you needed 10 more minutes to clear your email to make your brain feel better. That's okay too, right? Like, and then taking that pause and the walk and the things that are good. So it's different for everybody. It's like those, when people are like, oh, you got to have a gratitude journal. I'm like, well, you don't have to have a book that has like gratitude written on it. Sometimes I just take a moment and write it on my steam, well, every day I do this, the steam in my shower. I write something I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll just take a quick jot of a note in my notes on my phone. It doesn't need to be this like laid out, only the purple pen lays next to my fluffy
I
diary.
do like to make those parameters, though, just so
know,
that I
I
can
love
drop
to.
the habit sooner.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. The more things I add, the more planners I buy, the less likely I am to do it. But one of the things that I do that really helps my mental health is watch TV.
Yeah.
So, what shows do you love? What do you
Yeah.
watch?
What are
I'm
you
glad you said
unwinding
that
with?
because
Thank you.
And this is where it's so funny because we haven't let the kids have devices yet because we just didn't want to, and we wanted to keep them away. And so at 6 and 8, they still don't have iPads. They still only when we travel on an airplane have they ever played a video game. Have they ever they haven't touched it because we were kids. But and I'm only bringing this up because with TV or film, my husband and I grew up with consuming so much that we think it's great. And so we have absolutely no problem if we are all watching a program, and we watch a ton of TV.
It's the age of TV, guys.
It is. We came from that, and it's like that, and it has a plot and a story. Anyway, so what am I watching?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! Right now, while I'm running, I've never saw The Sopranos.
That's my favorite show.
So and I'm training for a half marathon, so I've
gosh.
been like these long runs on a treadmill when it's cold out. So I've been watching that. I'm not
What
very far.
season are you?
Only
Okay,
in the
just-
end of
okay.
first season. So
So
haven't
Livia
run that much.
Soprano. So you've
Yes.
realized Livia's
I'm very excited.
a toughie.
Yeah.
Tough.
Tough pop mom.
I like it. Not that I didn't expect to.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, it's so good.
it
It's so
started
good. It gets
TV,
you
right? Like
sucked in. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that, and then my husband and I, we've been trying to catch up on the Oscar films. So we just watched Poor Things. What we do watch a lot as a family right now is BattleBots. You guys ever
We
seen
haven't
this?
gotten into BattleBots.
Oh.
Not yet.
Well, it's endless, and it's fun. That was something he bought with his gift card that he got, was a BattleBot, which is it's just a bunch of nerds that made a cool engineering feats, and then they fight
Oh, that's
with
cool.
these things.
Perfect.
Yeah.
But even that is like science related, which
Yeah.
seems very on brand for you.
We also have gotten really into, and thank Disney Plus for this, showing the kids all the sitcoms that we grew up with. And that's where the Doogie Howser came from.
Yes.
They got really into Doogie. They watched almost the whole, I don't know how many seasons. And then we did Family Matters.
Family Matters is the best. I love that.
We just started kind of just showing them because
yeah.
we want them to be able to talk to people about pop culture.
Yeah.
Like I feel like you're
Yeah,
missing things, and the way that streaming is right now, there's not that.
Yeah.
It's harder. There not that one show that everybody's watching.
Yeah.
Great.
Have you watched anything with them that you're like, oh, that didn't really hold up?
Yes.
Or everything?
Or is it
No,
everything?
no.
Yeah.
A lot of it
That's
does, and
happening.
even if it does, because we watch a lot of movies, we almost every night we'll watch a movie,
That's great.
and so we watch a lot of '80s movies, and
Yep.
so most of the time they're right with us. Mannequin is a favorite right now.
Yes.
They love. What other one did we watch? Oh, Better Off Dead. You guys remember
I
that
love
movie?
that. Yes.
Anything like that's got that goofy, silly, like
Yeah,
80s works so
right.
well. What we're finding is that once you get into the She's All That of the 90s and the Clueless, and
Yeah.
it's a little too, maybe it's their age, and it becomes more driven toward like the high school, so they're not there
Yeah.
yet mentally,
Yep.
and
Yep.
so it's got to be the silly right now. But we're edging on it. They did like oh gosh, what did we watch? Something in the early 2000s. Now that's where it gets
Really dicey.
it starts really
dicey.
jumping the shark.
Yeah.
A lot of them. But we watch them all, and what we do a lot of times we're like, oh God, I didn't remember that. Or there's stuff that you cannot say, and we have to talk to them.
yeah.
A lot of the early
Well,
2000s.
that's good conversation starters.
Sure
though, I
is.
guess, right?
Wow.
Okay.
Even Mean Girls.
Get in, loser. We're going shopping.
Right.
Whoa.
Right. Yes.
Whoa.
There's a lot of. We have to give you some cultural context for a lot of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's shocking. especially like, anyway. And everyone's all, and then they were smoking. I'm like, so smoking's what you're
that's
worried
not the
about?
problem.
I am not
That's
concerned
actually
about
the least
that.
of my trouble. Sorry, guys. I know. Okay, Sabrina and I just started Gilded Age.
Yes.
So we have seen a good bit of it.
Mm-hmm.
We've read
Did
a lot
you guys
about
watch
it. We saw it.
Downton Abbey?
Yes. I only watched probably the first 2 seasons of Downton Abbey, but I have to tell you, tell her the tough take you have on period
I have a tough
pieces.
take.
Yeah.
I have a hard time watching any show where I don't think anyone on it is going to wear leather pants at some point.
That's
it's
a
just,
neat
like,
bar.
I don't know why that.
It's tough on
it
her.
came
It's tough
because
on
I was
her.
obsessed with Sons of Anarchy,
Yeah. Okay.
and when Downton Abbey also came
That's
out,
right.
and I was like, I can't be watching Downton Abbey. I'm watching Sons
Very
of
different,
Anarchy.
yeah.
But like, it doesn't feel edgy enough.
And
to
then I
me.
pointed out, though, but you did like Bridgerton, to which she
The Duke
said
wears leather pants.
they do wear leather in that.
actually
So that
recall.
was a tough take. That was tough.
Also
Not really like it's
different.
edgier.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is a lot of modernness in
Yes.
it. Yes, and I understand this. Do you know what I think it is? Is like I loved The Great. Did you guys watch that
yeah.
show?
Yes.
We loved it. So funny. It's very old, but it's edgy. Like
Yeah, yeah.
it's a take on history, and like I just found it so funny, and I love both of them. And anyway, so what I think I needed was that's a lot, right? It's a lot of boobs. It's a lot of like in your face, like woo.
Yeah.
Even for me, and I'm pretty liberal with things. But I think what I loved about Downton Abbey is it's slow and it's a different pace, and I have to be like really in the mood for like, and it's always when I'm working out. I should have clarified. I ran to all of the Gilded Age.
Maybe this is why we don't exercise.
I ran to Downton Abbey.
Okay.
And
haven't
so
done it
it was an easy watch as you're running, because if you're trying to watch Sons of Anarchy or even something as moving as The Great, you want to be more in it, and you're like you need to be smaller and slower. Whereas I can be fully in a sprint watching the Gilded Age because it's moving slow. So I think that's why. So because I do understand why somebody wouldn't want to like it, whatever. What I actually love the most, though, is when it surprises me where I am speaking in modern speak while these people are in whatever age they're in, and I'm like, this mother. Watch him walking in here, the prince of whatever. Who does he think he is? Like it's my reaction that then makes me laugh at myself at how I reacted to the Gilded Age.
Oh my gosh.
So I think that's what it is. It's that combo of like the workout plus I don't expect the writing gets really snappy and fun at the end of each season where you're like, nuh-uh, no they, whoa.
All right.
But-
okay.
Christine Baranski, I could watch her do just a one-woman show.
Yep.
She is so phenomenal. There are a lot of female characters in the show that are just sensational. Carrie Coon's in it. We've got Cynthia Nixon is back. But so do you have a favorite? They're all strong matriarchs. Do you have a favorite of these women that we're seeing?
Well, when I'm saying like this is like favorite because I find them entertaining, not that I want to be them or something.
Okay.
But I think that the Agnes Van Ryn character, she's got that. She mixes this like badass that she's been around, and she keeps throwing out like that was the Civil War, like she keeps like throwing out like such harsh digs of the time, and I almost like I went back trying to look. Can I bring some of those to the modern day? It doesn't translate, so I don't think people would really. But it's like what I want. That's I want a sick burn. In the late 1800s. So that's how I think that's what I love about her. Is she's so wrong, she's right, and she's such of that time. She is a bitch. She is the woman who is gonna. Yeah. And then I love Bertha Russell. She is the orchestrator of, and this is Carrie Coon's, right?
Yes, Carrie Coon's.
Her character is twisted. And
New
she
money.
is new money.
Right,
And the end of the second season, I won't blow it for anyone, but the lengths to which she will go to get what she wants for her family, namely her daughter and her family, is disgusting. And I love that.
And it's entertaining. We're not like when we ask people like who's their favorite pop culture mom, and we're like you could hate them.
Yeah,
just someone who's
that's what it
really
is.
you're very interested.
And that was
in,
very
you
like
wanna
recent.
watch. Of course,
So, like I've watched a lot of moms over time.
Oh yeah.
And my other one was like going back to Beverly Hills 90210. Like so,
Cindy Walsh.
Cindy Walsh to me is like, but but really, if you think about it, you couldn't hate her, you couldn't really love her. You just kind of, she was just like mom, and she was there. So I don't know if that counts. Like the way that Bertha Russell is not just orchestrating for her family, but all of Manhattan and learning about the history of how that society, because it's obvious history, just like The Great was exact from the history books.
Exactly.
Because that's how I think of pop culture. That's how I learn everything. If I didn't see The Crown, I wouldn't know what's going on. But I've seen it all, and I know exactly what's happening.
Exactly.
So that's how I think of pop culture, is that is my history lesson, but it's also the thing that gets me interested. Then I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Did the Vanderbilts really do this? Did they really build the Grand Central this way? Did a woman really build the Brooklyn Bridge, right? Like, I didn't know those things, and they're bringing up this stuff, and that's what I think I love, because my husband would tell you, if we sit down on a Friday night, I'm the one that wants to learn. I'm like, let's watch a documentary. I am like Ken Burns. Like, Ken Burns and I would be like this. He's like, can we watch a comedy we've seen 7 times and just fall asleep? Yeah. You know, and so we're very different. So this is a nice hybrid. That's why else I like it, because it's like I am really learning something. It might be a half truth, but I can go look it up later.
Yeah. No, I like that. And I like what you're saying about the context of the world of the characters, whether it's real historical time periods and things like that, it does inform how they're behaving, right? Like we see in this show a lot of outside judgment for the children, a lot of the daughters facing like kind of the demands and expectations of what society and the women that they're learning from or wanting from them. And I think that's what's so interesting about like Marion's character. She's with her aunts. She's with Agnes and Ada, and she doesn't feel like she can even marry the person that she wants to marry. She's dealing with all these. Did you feel when you were growing up?
So great, by the way.
So rich, so good. Do you relate to that? The feeling of like the child facing expectations, and also the mother kind of knowing that you don't want to burden your children with expectations.
To me, this show is such a far reach from how I grew up, or how, like, first of all, New York society today, I have no idea what it is, let alone back there, you know, back then, and what they had set up. So it feels very fantasy to me almost. Like, this is just like that world that I couldn't have imagined.
There are robber barons.
It's like might as well be Game of Thrones.
And they're, you know, like, but it's cool because it's the building of the Upper East Side. It is what is still. It's the original Gossip Girl. That's what it is, and that's what and that's probably why I like it too, because it's that gossipy kind of
melodrama.
In Marion's, in their slow way back then, there was a lot of expectation and things, especially for women. And what I like a lot too that the show does, that's a lot of shows do so much better, is it introduces us to the racial history of the time, like that none of us have ever been educated about, you know, not to that level. And like down to like at one of the plots is about the schools and about how the people in Brooklyn and in Lower Manhattan are trying to shut down the black schools. And they're like, we're not going to let this happen. And then I went and looked it up, and like there's definite history they're pulling from, and that was really interesting to start being like, oh my God. And that's the sub layer of this overarching gilded time of these people who are just gossiping with each other and like taking dukes from England and fighting over them, you know. So it's like all of those parts, and I love it. Most of the show you see that from the servant's perspective too, so just to know that layer, right? And like how our country was, there's a lot of problems, but like just seeing all of those and having all the drama in between
layers,
and that's what they did so well in Downton Abbey. It's the same guy.
One thing I wanted to mention, I saw this in your book, that you talked about maternal figures, like you talked about your stepmom. It doesn't have to be your biological mom. And I think in the Gilded Age, that's a big thing. That there are just a lot of, like, I say matriarch, but it's just a strong influence. And I think that's nice to see, that it doesn't have to just be your biological child or your biological mother that's really like raising you. And I think in your book you mentioned a lot of different women that had a big impact on your life. And I think we're seeing that in the show.
Ada is a great character for that, because, and that's Cynthia Nixon, which somebody told me they couldn't watch The Gilded Age because they were watching and just like that.
Oh wow!
And you couldn't have two characters she's playing that are different. The unmarried, never been married marm of like not so much. No. Anyway, so her character and what happens at the end of the second season, the power flip that happens. You can see that it's almost like the justification of this woman being such a saint and such a wonderful human being and being that kind of second place to her sister for so long, but caring for others under her, including all of her staff and all of these things. And now she's going to get to ascend to the throne.
Power stroke. Yeah.
Yes, and I do think that emphasizing that it doesn't have to be a mother. And I'm going through this with my family right now. When my stepmom passed, my brother was 18 and my sister turned 21. And there's never a good age to lose your parent. But I felt like that is such a formative time. It's such like a holy crap. It's a hard time in life anyway. Like going into college and then post-college, what am I supposed to be, an adult now? And I also don't have my mom to go back on.
I couldn't even fill out a form at that age without calling my mother.
That's right. And so to think about losing your mom, and I think that at that time, here I was, just getting my job, I had just gotten my job here a couple years before. I was just starting to get healthier. I was not in the place. Right. And now it's like, who is their mom, and who is, and my brother, actually, I've been texting with him today because I want him to know I'm not trying to be his mom, but I definitely need to step in right now. He's been a little bit isolating and a little bit, and you got to be pushed by your mom figure. You have to be held up and supported, and it has to be all of those good emotions and bad emotions because that's life, and that's what I'm teaching my children. And so it's whether we have it from someone else or we become it for someone else, it's a really important role, even in those different ages, because we're so much different in age. I mean, they were born when I was 15 and 17. Yeah. And so I'm that much older than them. So it already is kind of a different age thing, but I'm finally coming into this part of my life and I bought my sister's wedding dress. She's getting married this October. And
that's so
she lives in Hawaii, so physically it's very hard for us to get together. And but I was thinking about those pivotal moments when you don't have your parent, and I was like, and I know my dad's not thinking about it because he doesn't. It's not his specialty. He was good at taking care of sick kids, but not everybody's got everything. Like weddings aren't it. And so I was thinking, oh my gosh, and I told Ben, I'm going to tell her I want to buy her. And it meant the world to her. And it was like those little things. It doesn't have to be all-time mom or whatever, but those mom parental things we can do for each other. And thinking about what somebody else, maybe not even in your family, but a coworker or a friend or whatever, everybody needs another mom.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And it's so interesting, Ginger, that you were 15 and 17, because I have a sister who's 24 years older than me. Yeah. And she is like a mom. Yeah. She's always been like a mom.
My mom had another baby. Yeah. That same mom that's in med school at 49. And so I have a sister who's now 21. Yeah. And so I was 23. So a similar age. Yeah. It's really different. And with her, it was already settled as parent. At least with them, I was still a teenager, so there was a little bit of the sibling, but it was 2 years, and then I was out of there. Right. And so it's what a opportunity for me to use these parenting skills I'm garnering and maybe help apply them, Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And not make it so, I guess it also relieves maybe biological moms or the main caretaker mom too, that like you don't have to do the entire job. No. You don't have to be the therapist to your child. No. Like, there are a lot of influential people in their lives, men and women, that are serving.
I learned that in my mental health journey too, is everybody needs a full team. It's like a basketball team. Yep. You can't just have the who scores the forward?
That's what I
that
don't
person.
Know. We don't know.
You can't just have that. This isn't pop culture. Mom's not sport.
This isn't a basketball.
So anyway, that one. But you have to have all of them, because you, as my mom, she was the forever support. She in my journey. Yeah. She couldn't be the hard or tough love. Mm-hmm. My best friend, who's a doctor, she had to be the tough love. She had to say, I can't be your friend like this anymore. Mm-hmm. Change or I'm out of here. Mm-hmm. Then you have to have the person who is the physical teammate, the person who's going to be able to pull you out of that situation. There's like so many parts to the people you need, and your mom can't be all of it.
And not all the time. You don't want her to
be.
Right.
You wouldn't rely on her. You wouldn't tell her the same things that you tell other people. Like,
it's a different role.
You need a full team of moms.
Yeah.
And you need to then grow up and become like mom to
and
a lot of people.
And it would be a lot less gravity and it would be a lot less guilt and a lot less of all the other stuff that we feel if we weren't supposed to be responsible for all of that.
I think that's the trap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the real
Oh my
trap.
God, we figured it out.
You guys, I think it's case closed.
Solved. All
Ginger,
done.
we've taken too much of your time, and this has been a delight. This has
you.
been such a pleasure.
You too.
Thank you for talking.
I'm
with
very
us.
happy y'all are doing this. Congratulations.
Thank you.
you.
And now I know how to talk to my kids about climate change, mental
blanket.
health,
And
everything.
we're going to
It's a
call you to
blanket.
control the weather.
That's
from
right.
now on.
Thank
Done.
you for everything. Thank
We're
you.
calling it Mrs. Wizard. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.